What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it's time to give you my college football top 25 rankings heading into Week 5 of the 2023 college football season. Week 4 was not a disappointing weekend. We saw a lot of great games, a lot of top 25 matchups, and now we're heading into Week 5, and this season has really already flown by. I mean, it seems like it just got here yesterday. And it was a pretty exciting weekend of college football in week number 4. I mean, we're kind of expecting, an exciting weekend, over the weekend in week number 4, and it really did not disappoint. But not a lot of upsets happened over the weekend. Again, it was kind of about, competitiveness, about, the defenses over the weekend and kind of like about how good these teams are. So, and I think we learned a lot. I think we learned a lot about these teams over the weekend. We are now heading into Week 5, and this is kind of the time where we start to learn more and more about these teams. And again, I'm going to give you my updated top 25 rankings. Again, this is not the real AP poll. This is my top 25. I've been updating it ever since we started this season and everything. And I made a ton of changes compared to last week, so we're going to get started here with my top 25 rankings. And we'll start here from the bottom and work on my way up to the top. And we'll start from 21 through 25. I got Tulane here at number 25. I got them back in the top 25. There was a lot of, question marks of who I was going to put here in the top 25 this week. But Tulane was very impressive against Ole Miss a couple weeks ago. So that was the reason why I put this team back here in the top 25. Remember, they were at number 18 for me in the first, 2 weeks or maybe the first 3 weeks of the college football season. But then they lost that game to Ole Miss. That was kind of enough for me to put them back, put them out of the top 25. But based off of that performance against Ole Miss a couple weeks ago, that was enough for me to put them here back in the top 25 because they were very impressive against Ole Miss. I think Tulane is, still a good group of 5 team. I don't think there's anybody else that really can challenge them in the group of 5 teams. But you look at the other group of 5 team here that's at number 24. You look at Fresno State. They're here in my top 25 for the first time this year. Fresno State's been a really good team in the first 4 weeks. You look at this team, they had that win over Purdue. That was kind of enough for me to put them here in the top 25 because some of these teams that, I thought about putting in the top 25 don't have top 25 wins. Remember, it's not all about the record. It's just basically about top 25 wins and also resumes and everything. But I know Fresno State doesn't have a resume. They don't really play anybody, but I've just been very impressed with this Fresno State team. Remember, they had that win over Purdue in week 1, so that wasn't kind of enough for me to put them here at number 24. But Fresno State and Tulane, I think these are your top group of 5 teams this year. I mean, so far from what we've seen so far, UTSA is probably likely out of it now because they lost to Tennessee. So I think these are 2 teams that are going to be really good for the rest of the way. Oregon State here at number 23. I'm not going to penalize them for losing to Washington State. I just have them moving down 3 spots. I wasn't very impressed with their performance a couple weeks ago, but I was very impressed with them this week. They nearly came back and almost beat Washington State in that second half. The game was really competitive from there, and, Oregon State was a very competitive team. When you look at that Utah game now coming up this weekend for Oregon State, which will be held on a Friday, I think Oregon State has a really good chance to win that game based off of what they did against Washington State. So I got them here at number 23. Again, they lost, but I'm not going to penalize them too much. Missouri here at number 22. This team has been very impressive in the first 4 weeks. They had that win over Kansas State in the top 25. And that was kind of enough for me to put them here in the top 25 this weekend. Remember, I didn't have them in my top 25 last week. I mean, it was kind of a tiebreaker between Florida and Missouri, but I think Florida had the better top 25 win than Missouri. Tennessee was ranked number 11, Kansas State was ranked number 15, so that was kind of enough for me to put Florida ahead of Missouri. And Florida's here at number 21, so that's the reason why they're ahead of Missouri here in my top 25. Florida, not a really good performance against Charlotte this weekend, but I think they're going to get better. I think this team is going to get better. Maybe they were just kind of too hyped a little bit over the game against Tennessee. And maybe they were not focused going into the game against Charlotte. Maybe they're focused on Kentucky, which is coming up this weekend. That will be a really tough game there, really tough test for Florida. And if they win that game, Florida is back as an SEC East contender and also probably the second best team in the SEC East behind Georgia and everything because if Florida gets better, maybe they have a really good shot to beat Georgia, but I don't think that's the case as of right now, because I just haven't seen like a really great performance by Florida. I know they really did good against Tennessee, but I had to see more from Florida in order for me to kind of, think that they're going to compete with Georgia this upcoming season. So these are my rankings from 21 through 25. All right, let's go 16 through 20. I got Miami at number 20. Very impressive win against Temple on the road. They still have that win over Texas A&M in the top 25, so that's the reason why they're still here. So not much to talk about Miami, except they had a big win over Temple. Duke here at number 19. They have that top 25 win, top 10 win, I should say, against Clemson, in week number 1. I've been very impressed with this Duke team in the first 4 weeks. I mean, they have looked really good on offense. Defense looks strong. They'll get their first real test this upcoming weekend against Notre Dame. And if they win that game, I think Duke is definitely going to be an ACC contender. I don't really want to call them an ACC contender just yet. I know they beat Clemson already, but Clemson doesn't look good now. And I think Duke has a really good opportunity to do that against Notre Dame this weekend. Notre Dame's not an ACC team, but that will be a huge win there on their resume and everything. So they're here at number 19. I got North Carolina here at number 18. Very impressive win on the road at Pittsburgh. The offense looks so much better. The defense still has some work to do, but this team is getting better. They have wins over South Carolina. They have wins over Minnesota. I mean, North Carolina's just getting better and better. They are still an ACC contender. And how about that? I got 3 ACC teams here from 16 through 20. All 3 of these teams that you're seeing the ACC right now, they have been really, really good this year. Miami has looked really good. Duke has looked really good. North Carolina has looked good. So, yeah, all the 3 of these teams in the ACC really could challenge for that first place spot. I know there's Louisville out there. They're still undefeated, but they don't have a top 25 win yet. I have to see more from Louisville to really put them here in the top 25. I got Oklahoma here at number 17. Not a very impressive performance against Cincinnati on the road. Cincinnati's defense kind of held their own in this game. But I tell you what, Oklahoma I think is still one of those top teams in the Big 12, kind of compared to Texas. But based off of their performance, they weren't really that good. You probably could say I put North Carolina ahead of Oklahoma. But again, North Carolina hasn't got a top 25 win. I know I could put Duke and Miami ahead, but I think North Carolina is, as of right now, is the better team. But again, it was kind of hard to rank these top 25 teams and everything. But again, North Carolina had a really good performance against Pittsburgh on the road, so that was enough for me to keep them ahead of Duke and Miami. But Oklahoma, they have a long way to go. I mean, they have a long way to go before they play Texas and, all those other teams in the Big 12. I mean, we'll see Oklahoma or Texas lose in the Big 12. The Big 12 is definitely wide open. And when you look at the Big 12 this weekend, I mean, you got, some big-time games. You got Texas playing Kansas, so that's a very potential game that, Texas can lose. But, again, Oklahoma here at number 17. Again, not a very good performance against Cincinnati, but I think this team will get better. I think, after a sluggish performance in their first game as a Big 12 team, not like at first as a Big 12 team, or maybe like their first game in the Big 12 this year, I think that's going to kind of motivate them to kind of, do good down the stretch. Tennessee at number 16, very impressive win against UTSA. They kind of redeemed themselves after that loss to Florida. Joe Milton looks so much better on the offensive side of the football. Tennessee, I think, was more aggressive in this game than they were against Florida last weekend. And if Tennessee can be more aggressive like that, they have a really good chance to get back to conversation for the SEC. So Tennessee here at number 16. Let's go from 11 through 15 now. I made some changes here. I got Ole Miss here at number 15. They had so many opportunities to win this game against Alabama, but their offense just could not score points in this game. Alabama's defense really held their own in this one. And, Ole Miss kind of, turned the ball over as well, later in the game. Jackson Dart got pressured in this game a lot. He just could not get the ball out of his hands on time. And, Ole Miss just had so many great opportunities to win this game. They were getting all this hype as well. A lot of people were picking Ole Miss to beat Alabama just based off of Alabama's performance against South Florida this past weekend. But I still think Alabama was going to win regardless. But I tell you what, Ole Miss just had so many opportunities to win this game. That just didn't turn out to be the case. So Ole Miss here at number 15, they have their first loss of the season. But when you look at the game against LSU coming up this weekend for Ole Miss, that's a really good chance that they can win that game. I mean, LSU did not perform that well against Arkansas. I mean, when I just look at that game now, I think Ole Miss has a really good chance if their defense can make stops. I mean, if they can play just so much better than they did against Alabama, Ole Miss has a really good chance to knock off LSU this upcoming weekend. Notre Dame at number 14. They lost to Ohio State, first loss of the season for this Notre Dame team. It was mostly about the defense for Ohio State that really could stop this Notre Dame offense. You know, Notre Dame took the lead there in the fourth quarter. Early in the fourth quarter, I thought Notre Dame's defense was going to stop this Ohio State, offense at the last possible second. I thought Notre Dame was going to win this game, and I did pick Notre Dame to win this one. You remember I said that this game was going to kind of determine if Notre Dame is a playoff contender. I still think they are, but I tell you what, Notre Dame, their offense has just been very good, but this was their toughest test. But again, they had a really good opportunity to win that game at the end of the day. But again, Notre Dame, their offense is still really good enough to kind of compete with all these other teams. Notre Dame will play Duke on the road this weekend. That'll be a very tough test for them. We'll see if they kind of redeem themselves after this loss to Ohio State. Alabama at number 13, very impressive win against Ole Miss. Just talked about Ole Miss. They had so many opportunities to win this game, but I was very impressed with Alabama's defense. They were much better, compared to the Texas game a couple weeks ago. I mean, Alabama's defense looks like it's back to where it used to be. Offensively, they still have some work to do. The offense still has some work to do. They have to, keep running the football a little bit more. But I tell you what, with Jalen Monroe at quarterback, he's definitely the right guy for this Alabama team. And Alabama might have a chance to probably win out for the rest of the year. If they do that, that will be the greatest comeback. They've done that before back in 2015. Remember they lost to Ole Miss? That was their only loss of the season. They still made the college football playoff that year. But Alabama, it's still hard to tell where this team is going to go from. Alabama will have to still play in the SEC West here. They still got some tough games on their schedule. They got Texas A&M. That's going to be a very tough game there on the road. They also got to play LSU still, but Alabama looked good in this game against Ole Miss. Compared to last weekend against South Florida, they didn't have any quarterback issues. There were times where Jalen Monroe got pressured in this game, but he was still kind of, being a really good quarterback here and there. So Alabama here at number 13. I was very impressed with their win against Ole Miss. Washington State here at number 12. Very impressive win against Oregon State. But remember I just talked about it earlier. Oregon State almost came back in this game, but Washington State was able to come away with this win. This is a dark horse contender in the Pac-12. I think Oregon State is still a dark horse contender, even though they lost. But I tell you what, both of these teams really gave it their all. I mean, they really went back and forth in this game, but Washington State is definitely a dark horse contender. When I look at this Washington State team, I just think they could really challenge Oregon, Utah in the Pac-12 perhaps, and maybe their rival Washington perhaps. But it's got a long. We had a long way to go before we kind of figure out what Washington State is going to do. But I tell you what, I put Washington State ahead of both Alabama and Notre Dame and Ole Miss just because they have two top 25 wins. They have two top 25 wins, one to Wisconsin, and then they had that win over Oregon State from a couple days ago. So that was enough for me to put Washington State here at number 12. This team is 4-0. It's not just about the record. It's just about the consistent playing from this Washington State team. And then Utah here at number 11. I know they weren't really impressive against UCLA. Cam Rising did not play in this game. I mean, it's kind of no telling when he's going to be playing for this Utah team. We still have a long way to go about this Utah team, but what we've learned so far from Utah is that they got a great defense. The defense is really strong for Utah. Offense still has some issues, but the defense is very strong for Utah. I know Utah is ahead of Washington State here. Washington State should be ahead, but Utah was UCLA was a top 25 team, so that was kind of enough for me to kind of put them here ahead of Washington State. But these are my rankings from 11 through 15. These are the most changes I made from 11 through 15. Let's go now from 6 through 10. We got Oregon here at number 10. Very impressive win against Colorado. They blew them out. Colorado doesn't look like a good team after all, but I still think they're a good team, but it just doesn't really look like it against the Pac-12. So Oregon here at number 10. Offense very explosive in this game. Defense looked really strong. I'm pretty sure they held, to Shadir Sanders to about 159 yards of passing. I mean, they gave him a lot of, pressure in this game. Oregon's defense just played really well. That's the main reason why they're here in the top 10, just because based off of their performance against Colorado. Washington here at number 9, very impressive win against Cal. Their defense gave up a lot of points in this game, but I was still very impressed with Washington's offense. Michael Penix, one of the top quarterbacks right now in the country in total yards passing. USC at number 8. Not a very impressive win against Arizona State. The defense really gave them, some points in this game, and that kind of, tells me that USC is probably not going to be a team that probably could make the playoff if they play like that. But we knew USC going into this year. The main concern for them was going to be the defense for this year. So that is the main concern what I have for USC heading down the stretch. They'll play another road game this weekend. They'll play Colorado. If Colorado brings their A game. Based off of that performance against Oregon, they weren't very impressive in that game. If they bring their A game, if their offense can score some points, and if their defense can make some stops, I mean, Colorado has a great chance to upset USC, which I don't think that's going to happen because I think USC just has a really too good of an offense, and plus Travis Hunter is out for Colorado. I think that's the reason why that Oregon just really blew them out in this game. But how about it? I got 3 Pac-12 teams here from 8 and 10. So 8 through 10 here from 6 through 10. I got USC, Washington, and Oregon all ranked here in the top 10. LSU here at number 7. Not a very impressive performance against Arkansas. Arkansas gave this LSU team a scare, and I knew going into that game, it's a rival game. You never know what can happen in that one. So LSU here at number 7. They'll play on the road at Ole Miss this weekend, so LSU is going to have to get back to where they used to be and everything. They're going to have to kind of be like that LSU team that we saw like in week number 3 against Mississippi State. They're going to have to really perform like that in that game this weekend against Ole Miss. Penn State here at number 6. Penn State was here for me at number 7 last week, but based off of the performance from LSU in the game against Arkansas, I had to put Penn State here at number 6. I've just been very impressed with this Penn State team in the first 4 weeks. This team really could challenge Ohio State and Michigan. I'm not really kidding. I think they could really challenge them in the Big Ten East. So these are my rankings from 6 through 10. Not much to talk about Penn State, but they kind of rode over Iowa in the second half. So that was the biggest thing that happened over the weekend for this Penn State team. Well, let's now go to the top 5. Same top 5 from last week. I got Ohio State here at number 5, Texas at number 4, Florida State at number 3, Michigan at number 2, and then Georgia at number 1. Ohio State got that win on the road at Notre Dame. That kind of tells us that Ohio State is back to where they used to be. But it wasn't really about the offense. It was about the defense for Ohio State. I think this could be one of the top defenses in the country. I know Alabama, let Ole Miss score lesser points, but when I look at both of those defenses, I think Ohio State just looks so much better than Alabama. It's kind of hard to say that because both of those teams haven't played each other, but if they did play each other, it would be a low-scoring type game. But I think Ohio State, they were so much better this weekend. And again, Notre Dame is a very explosive offense, so that's the reason why I think Ohio State could be one of the most dangerous defenses in the country. Texas at number 4. Beat Baylor on the road. It was a very solid win for them this weekend, so not much to talk about Texas, but they have a big game coming up this weekend against Kansas. That will be a very tough test for them. The good news is I think they get it at home this year, so that's the good news there for Texas. Remember a couple years ago, the last time these two teams played in Austin, Texas lost to Kansas. I mean, Kansas was still a downhill team that year, but Texas here at number 4. Florida State at number 3. Very impressive win against Clemson in overtime. It was a back-and-forth game. Florida State, forced a turnover there in the fourth quarter, and the game was all tied up heading into overtime, and then Florida State scored a touchdown pass on that play. So Florida State here, I think this is the team to beat in the ACC. I know you got other undefeated teams out there in the ACC. You got North Carolina. You got Louisville in there. You also got Duke and Miami. But Florida State, I think this is one of the best teams in the ACC for right now. They got that win over LSU in the top 25. Michigan at number 2. not a very impressive performance against Rutgers. I wasn't very impressed with them in the first half, but second half they started to find their offense a little bit more better. Jim Harbaugh is back for Michigan, so maybe this offense will get better and they start to kind of score more points. But Michigan here at number 2, and then Georgia here at number 1, dominating win against UAB this weekend. So Georgia here, I still think they're the top team in the country, but I tell you what, Ohio State and Texas and Florida State are right up there with them. I mean, I think they're going to really challenge Georgia for that top spot. I mean, I probably could put Florida State ahead of Michigan just because based off of their performance. But I tell you what, Florida State, I think they still have a long way to go in order for me to kind of put them at number 2. But Texas at number 4, I mean, they're going to have a tough game this upcoming weekend against Kansas. But Ohio State, I think this is one of the top defenses in the country. We'll find out how good they are against the Big Ten competition and everything. So top 5, same thing as last week. And these are my updated top 25 rankings heading into Week 5 of the 2023 college football season. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think about this updated top 25? What's your top 25 as well heading into Week 5 of the weekend? Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.